I stand tall. Yes, aspire, I rise, can fall. Hold my strength, the spirit can tame. Out of a warrior, I stand on trade. Pick up yourself.
Hey everyone, and welcome to the Sin Bin. CMB Reggae continues in its quest to bring you the best of reggae in the Mid-Atlantic, and tonight is no exception. Our guest tonight hails from the North Bronx, but is a frequent traveler to Philadelphia. She has been a staple of the New York City reggae scene over 2 decades. Her first album, Christmas in Paradise, was released in 2012. She has performed alongside Beres Hammond, Terrace Riley, Damian and Stephen Marley, Anthony B., and Egyptian, just to name a few. Born in Belize, frequently traveling to Jamaica, and currently living in NYC, she has had musical influences from all over. Aside from her music career, she still follows her passion of working with young people as a choral director and music school teacher, and still squeezes in time to perform for the elderly and veterans in veterans' homes. It is my pleasure to introduce the lovely and talented Mesha Steele to the Sin Bin. Welcome to the Sin Bin, Mesha. How are you doing today?
Good. Thank you so much. Thanks for having me, Chris.
It's a pleasure. For the rest of my audience, I'm sure they saw the quick green room interview moment that we did about 2.5 weeks ago, and this is just a follow up to that, so we could drill a little bit deeper and not miss the show, not miss the rest of the show while we were doing that recording. Okay, let's start off at the beginning. Where does the name Mesha Steele come from?
So Mesha is my given name by birth, but Steele, that just came from all the hardships, the ups and downs in life, and as a musician and all of that. And it only made me tougher. So somebody called me Woman of Steel, and that's where I got the name Mesha Steele.
Wow, just happened. Okay. All right. So this is the category where I get in trouble, but this is my indulgence as a super fan. What I like to do is listen to a lot of the library of my artists before I sit and listen to them, and I hear the musical influences and take a random guess, and sometimes I get it right and sometimes I don't, but let's just give this one a shot. We talked before about Diana King. You were a big Diana King fan.
Yes, I am.
In terms of influences, the two other artists that I hear in your style are Tanya Stephens and Jasmine Sullivan.
Whoa.
What are your thoughts on that?
Yep, you are on the money.
Are you a Tanya Stephens fan? I'm a huge Tanya Stephens fan.
Of Tanya Stephens, and definitely she is in my range. And then as far as Jasmine, I've always been told that I sounded like her in some form. So I guess that's a compliment because that girl can sing.
Yeah.
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 But
she can. Yeah.
I'll go further. My idol in the whole singing thing, I love Lauryn Hill. I would say Lauryn Hill.
Well, in a lot of those songs, audibly, Jasmine Sullivan is pretty hard to discriminate from Lauryn Hill. You
correct.
Sometimes you can't even tell the difference.
It's the same range, exactly. So
yeah,
that's been the soundtrack of my young life. Yeah, definitely been in my earbuds for a long time. Before earbuds with Lauryn Hill, really CD and karaoke days and all that. So yeah, rollerblades.
Excellent. So how did you get into the reggae business?
So reggae has always been a part of my life because of the family. I grew up around my uncles, my grandfather, my aunts. We had a reggae band, and I grew up in a yard filled with musicians. My mom was also a great singer. She passed away when I was 2 years old. As a result of that, I was raised by my grandparents. So this is how I wound up in the McGregor yard, in my home country. And everyone who was anyone went there when it came to recording, when it came to whatever music, rehearsal, whether they needed advice, contracts, whatever. My grandfather was the brain behind all of that stuff. Godfrey McGregor, God rest his soul. So that's my dad. I called him dad. So yeah.
Right. So this is just um this is like second nature to you, just like breathing.
Correct. Embedded.
Right.
Embedded.
Uh-huh. Well, that I'm sure that's quite an advantage if you have access to that level of advice, and um you're gonna miss a lot of the traps that a lot of other people fall into.
In some form, I would say yes, because for me, because I was a daddy's girl for that short period of time that, they lived in Belize before they migrated here to the U.S. And my
Hmm.
daddy used to take me to all his meetings with the promoters and such. So I was like a little sponge, and I'm absorbing everything that he's saying to them. And then I would come home and be on my little toy telephone, making mock conversation, making mock deals. Mock
Fair
contracts and
enough.
all of that. Yeah. So, but
Hmm.
also I mimicked my uncles a lot. Like when, they were my uncle Deli, he was a drummer slash singer in the band Bamika Bandula, which is the band I grew up around. And
Hmm.
every morning he got up before he burned his spliff, he would he would have his honey and he would do his vocal runs like a vocal warm up every single morning. And I just started mimicking him at he told me I was maybe 3 years old because when I moved up in that yard, I was about two when my mom died. So at 3 years old, I was mimicking him, and
Hmm.
mimicking my other uncle on the bass, and just kind of when they would turn your backs, playing with their instruments. So,
Hmm.
grown ups did not want us kids in the old school to be touching anything. So I always kind of waited until your backs were turned, and I'm doing what I do, and I kind of mimicked everything that they were doing and taught myself inadvertently the
Hmm.
business and the music itself.
So what was the path to New York City? How did that happen?
It was just something in my head. I came here, they brought me here in the 80s. I was an itty
Hmm.
bitty kid. Um,
Hmm.
Harlem was dirty and disgusting at that time, but they
You
had
moved to
those.
you moved into Harlem in the 80s?
Yes. So,
Okay.
yeah, I was a I was a little girl, but the style, the fashion, because I remember Salt and Pepper with the hair and the earrings and
Hmm.
all that stuff and the cool jackets. But this guy passed, kind of passed by with this Michael Jackson jacket on, and he had the big boombox on his shoulder, and he's doing all this crazy stuff. I'm like, oh my God, I want to be like that. And I said, I am moving to New York when I get, older. This is what I told my grandma. She's like, yeah, fine. You could come back when you're 18. Okay. Okay.
Right.
Yep.
So you did,
So I did.
but not
Yep.
back to Harlem.
Not Harlem, honey. No. I was a Westchester girl for a little bit.
Okay.
Came here in the dead of winter. It was freezing.
Hmm.
And I came off the heels of, leading Belize's top band at the time. Um, still technically a teenager and all of that. And I was bored out of my mind because when you're in the type of, nightlife, like, in those parts, in those, in that era, everything is done at 3 in the morning and all that. So my mental and my clock, biological clock, whatever you want to call it, my clock was set to be up late and to get up late and all that, sleep late, get up late, blah blah blah. So I missed everything because I came in the dead of winter, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I gotta find music. This is killing me. So I said, okay, we're gonna go to church, and I went to church, and somebody who recognized me in the church kind of snatched me out of it. So that lasted exactly 2 weeks.
Right. Well, that's New York. That is New York. Okay. So y- you're you're a little bit you're more than a little bit younger than me. Um, in in terms of what you've seen over the last 2 decades, the New York City reggae scene seems to have changed a lot. There's been a lot of ups and downs, and I was
Oh yeah,
wondering, particularly like what your thoughts are on it, because in the '90s and even after 2000, um, dancehall was made for the five boroughs, and it was everywhere. And now with just changing demographics and changing real estate costs, uh, a lot of that presence seems to have gone away, or it has changed. It's kind of
yeah,
morphed into some different things.
yeah.
Um, is this is what's happening in New York now, in terms of, we're now seeing a new resurgence of white reggae and black and white reggae acts playing together,
Right.
which, to some extent is unusual for people who've been in the scene for a really long time. I was wondering what your thoughts are in terms of whether or not you think New York City is coming back or doing something greater in terms of the reggae scene.
See, I don't know that that is the case.
Uh-huh.
Well, it just varies because, first of all, the venues here make it very hard to kind of sustain it with all the regulations that are at play. Me as a band leader, I know this because, there were certain places that I used to, be the house band, and all of those things
Mm-hmm.
kind of, disappeared. They have, evaporated. And I think that trend started right around the recession.
Mm-hmm.
And then it just went on a steady decline from that point. There is still reggae, but like you mentioned, it's more diverse and more of
Mm-hmm.
a crossover. I think I would say crossover, if you will, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because the different races are crossing over to that, because reggae is always going to be an enduring genre.
Yes.
But the grassroots, the people who created it or who pioneered it, unfortunately has been pushed out because of a lot of regulations, like I mentioned before, and all these other red tape that is being placed
Oh,
in front.
you talking about work permits and that kind of
Yeah,
stuff?
because all of those things have a lot to do with it. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and some of them, you know, they're not necessarily business savvy.
Yeah.
When like me as an artist, I think I'm a hybrid because of how I was raised. But a lot of us do not have that luxury. I have a business
Mm-hmm.
mind about me, right? So a lot of them do not have the energy or even the know-how to even go through it. By the time they're done, you're
Right.
exhausted. You don't even want to do music anymore. There was one point where it kind of happened to me, because when I first moved to America, um, all I really wanted to do was sing, because this is me coming off of the heels of the Messengers, the band that I was fronting, in the Caribbean. And when I came here, because everything was done for me, and my tours were set up, everything was done for me. All I had to do was show up for my flights, show up and sing, come to the sound checks, blah blah blah. So the knowledge that I had, that my grandfather inadvertently taught me, was put away for a minute until I realized what was going on here. And before I actually put that into play, it was a very depressing time for me, because I just wanted to show up and sing. A girl wanted to
Mm-hmm.
just, have a nice manicure and all of that. And, just be girly and be a diva or whatever and just come and rip it. But with the way things were going on, it's like I couldn't even say, okay, I will have a manager to manage that, because there was not even enough, income coming from the venues to even
Mm-hmm.
pay, let's say, a manager to get my ducks in a row.
Right.
So that has a lot to do with it, right?
Yeah.
A lot of
Well, you
it's from a logistic standpoint, a lot of it.
you did bring up an interesting point that was a factor that I didn't consider, and that is that, there were a lot of clubs out there that historically, you know, they would do weekly residencies where, the same artist would be on stage every Friday night. I think with social media taking off, I don't think that happens as much anymore as it used to.
No, not as much. And a lot of the musicians got frustrated, and they either left New York, because up until this year, one of my favorite keyboard players, one of my favorite drummers, my favorite sound engineer from the New York area, they all picked up and they left. A bass player of mine, they all left, because it's hard for them to sustain a living here in New York, where everything is expensive, trying to play music at the same time. So literally, they had to get some type of other job. My keyboard player, like, he would literally go to his Amazon job right up. Like, for example, we went to Massachusetts one time. This was last summer or whatever, or I think it was last summer, late last summer or last fall. And as soon as he came back from Massachusetts, he went straight to the warehouse to do his Amazon job. So he had zero sleep. So this is what is happening.
Yeah.
So a place like Pennsylvania, the music scene is benefiting as a result. Massachusetts has always been happening, but you know, it's happening even more. It's
Oh,
better.
I
It's
always
doing
just
well.
thought it was because the artist liked us.
Well, that too, but the next best thing, because look, trending, everything is moving from the outskirts of New York because New York is making it unbearable for you to be
Yes.
an artist and not have six jobs
No,
and see your house and rest.
yeah. No, it's true. I mean, I talked to a lot of artists who work the North Jersey circuit, and to a person, every single one of them just says, "Yeah, what we're doing here is fine, but I do not cross the river. It's just
Yeah.
for what it is being paid, it's not worth doing." And so you have a lot of venues on the Jersey City side that really,
Sure,
that really benefit from all the talent in North Jersey, but
sure.
those artists they never cross into Manhattan, you know.
No.
Um, some people don't like the idea of getting in a van and driving up, Madison Avenue with a van full of heavy equipment and no place to park and
No, it's not practical at all from
trying to
that
load out
standpoint.
and all that kind of stuff.
No, because you get a ticket every so often, and you get a ticket and within 15 minutes you're getting towed. That's how bad it
Yeah,
is. So
yeah.
it's not the best unless it's some type of high budget, high end, whatever, and you're getting your
Mhm.
parking validated and all that nice stuff. But in reality, when you are an artist or a musician, doing this on a weekly basis, or a weekend warrior or whatever, that's not the reality. You're getting 300
Right.
bucks or whatever it is, and some of them don't even give you that, and maybe a drink ticket if you're lucky. And
Yes. The suspect vegan burrito.
indeed, it's brutal, man. It's brutal.
Okay, all right. So let's get to the more relaxing part of this interview. The pressure's off. A little bit more of a casual conversation. What are you listening to right now? What is it that is out there that is really that has really got your attention?
To be honest, I'm not listening to anyone at the moment because I'm in a creative phase. I don't want
Uh-huh.
anything to particularly stick to me because I'm actively making an album right now, or starting now, this week. I'm in the writing process and all of that creative process, and I do not want any influence. I want it to be as original as possible. So for that reason, I kind of stayed away. And
Okay.
yeah, but prior, my addiction has been Ibamar, Exco Levi, right?
Well,
I like my Anthony B, still like Anthony B stuff, my Sizzla Kalonji, those are my staples. But Ibamar is the artist for me right now that's in my ear and in my veins. Like his music is
yeah.
just something else.
I saw Ibamar in May in North Philly, and they were backed up by Unity Vibration
Right.
when they played. And let me tell you, he did a live performance where he just
Oh,
threw down, you
listen, I
know.
wish I could have made it. He's
Yeah,
awesome.
it was really, there's a place in North Philly. Let's see if the name is not coming to me right now, but it's one of the local spots next to Temple University, and it's kind of a divey place, but um, Wagwan Culture and Delroy Gray have used that place a couple times,
Oh,
and
cool.
has really kind of turned it into a place where can really happen on the weekend. He bought Sister Nancy there. He bought Ivan
Wow.
there, and
Awesome.
yes, and there's some really good shows, and when you're in North Philly in the hood, you really kind of feel like the pressure's off. The same way that I used to feel in downtown DC with the punk
Mm-hmm.
rock shows in the late '80s.
Ah,
Like, you know, for some reason, when everything is when everything looks like a dive, it seems like the pressure's off, and the creative artists can go do whatever it is they want to do because they're not worried about the consequences of it.
Sure.
And um, so yeah, that's I'm looking forward to how Wagwan does that next summer
Oh
because
yeah.
I think that he can bring in a good number of artists. Okay, what is the best show that you've ever attended watching somebody else?
Wow. Hmm. I will have to go in the archives for that because I've been hard at work. But recently, I will
Recently?
say the most recent was Carlton Livingston. So Sydney Mills had reggae, like a reggae cruise, I think Brooklyn Reggae Cruise
The
or something
Reggae
like
Cruise,
that.
yes.
Correct.
Mhm.
So Carlton Livingston was on there, Sundub, and I cannot remember the name of that rock ska band, but they were kicking. I'm like, oh my God. But I thoroughly enjoyed myself because I was amongst my, my peers, my musical family.
Right,
And I wasn't
right.
required to perform or anything. They kind of brought me on there for 30 seconds for formalities or whatever, because, I have a new
Oh,
song
that's
that's going to
nice.
come out with Sidney Mills,
Right.
on his label next year, or whatever. But it was great because Carlton Livingston is one of my favorite artists. Um, yeah, he's one of my favorites, and, Sundub is something.
Right.
So it was a
So
great
is that is
combination.
it, these are afternoon cruises?
It was an
That
evening cruise.
is an evening cruise?
Yeah, yeah,
Hmm.
it was awesome.
I've seen a couple of them. I don't include I I typically don't include the reggae cruises on the list of who's playing where because it's to inform people that they could show up at a certain place and
Correct.
after a certain time the boat's already gone, so it doesn't it
Yeah,
doesn't influence people as to where it is they're going to go on a
indeed.
particular night. But I have seen they've done a couple of them. They've done about three or four of them,
Hmm.
and Sidney Mills is a great guy. I mean, he's just he's very friendly. He's very open to mentoring
Indeed.
and bringing other people on to do all kinds of things. And he's just a quiet guy and he's reserved, but his ability to play and his ability to hear that music in his
It's
mind is just
awesome. Look,
unparalleled.
because when we're working, I do a lot of work with him in the studio. I color up a lot of the albums with my harmonies. So when
Hmm.
we're in there, it's like I walk in there not doing what I'm going to do on that particular record. I don't even hear the records first of all before I go in. And when
Hmm.
I hear it, we get together and we work on it. It's magic. And his air, I cannot get away with a single thing with him. I can't get away. It's like, you sure you don't want to do that again? I'm like, oh damn it.
Yes.
But yep, I gotta listen, I gotta
Well,
do
I
it.
mean,
But it's brilliant,
that seems to be a recurring theme in Jamaican music that producers have very little tolerance for things that are outside of parameters,
But they're
you
very
know.
keen air. And that's what I like about it. This is why I
Mhm.
love reggae music so much, because there is a certain discipline behind, the musicianship of it all. And
Absolutely.
when we're making the music, because we want to put our best foot forward. And yeah, it's like sometimes maybe it's because I'm tired or whatever, but I got to do what I got to do. But I mean, he's one of the best people I've worked with in
Hmm.
the studio.
Hmm. Okay. What is the best venue you ever performed at? What is the place that you played that you were so
Mm,
comfortable, it was so memorable, and you'd say to yourself, God, I could play here at any time. What is that place that jumps out to you?
um, that would be wow. Okay, recently when I worked with Beres, um,
Uh-huh.
Keswick was really good.
Keswick Theater.
Yeah.
The Keswick Theater
The
up here, yeah.
stage, because I had room to move, it was a nice and big and spacious stage, and everything was comfortable. The microphone, everything was good. And I
Hmm.
showed off because, I wasn't really confined. See, here in New York, and a lot of the stuff in the north, the stages are not very big.
Yeah.
So I kind of confine myself a little bit and whatever. It's like, oh gosh, sometimes I just want to let loose and just be. That one I
Yeah.
could have done backflips on that stage and that was gonna be good. And
Absolutely.
I had sneakers on because I was prepared too but I had a dress on. I couldn't actually. I had a dress on, I couldn't do that. Yeah.
Right.
But it was that comfortable and everything was perfect, you know. Um
Mm.
and then Ardmore was just as good, a little constricted as far as space to move around, but it was also good energy, like energy wise, the
Mm.
reception and all of that. And these are the best two in recent memory. See, working this long in the industry, a lot of it is a blur, right?
Mm.
Um, but yeah, the other one would have been years ago when I worked with Everton Blender at BB King's in New York when BB King's was still open. Another one would have been Vermont, and it was like Vermont Jerk Fest or something, and stuff like that. But
Mm.
those are stuff that I've done years ago.
Mm. Right. I just try to ask all the artists because there's a lot of my fan base is artists in different localities in the Mid
Sure,
Atlantic that are looking to break out to different places, and any chance that they can learn from someone else of the
of course,
places that are best to play. I just
of course,
figured that I, always bring that front and
yeah,
center in interviews.
because I think a lot of it, the sound engineer that you would have would make the difference because you could have a killer venue but not the right engineer, and it would
Hmm.
be terrible.
Yeah.
So if you have the right person at the helm, it doesn't matter if you're at a hole in the wall, you're going to enjoy it.
Yeah. And the other way too.
True.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay. So is there anything that you want to plug? You have a new single that's just come out with
Yep.
Flargon. Is that correct?
That is correct. Touch the Road out now on the Westbound Cruise Rhythm. It
Hmm.
also has, it's a juggling album compilation or juggling. Beres
Hmm.
Hammond is on there featuring Capleton. There's Jigsy King. There's Tantometra and
Oh,
Devante.
wow.
It's a star-studded cast of artists that is on that entire compilation. It appears
And
that
what's the name? What's the name of the compilation?
Westbound Cruise Rhythm.
Okay.
Yeah, very recently
All right.
came out. But it appears mine and Forgan has trended. We're not quite sure what's
Hey.
going on with the others, but we're trending. So yay!
Well, you could ask them. Be like, hey, I'm trending and you're not. What's going on with that? See
I
what they
will at
say.
some point. I've just been hard at work, pushing that and just being a musician. And my kids in school have a recital coming up, so I'm kind of polishing them up for that. Yeah, it's like
Hmm.
I wear many hats. So when that hat is on, in the daytime, I'm trying to polish them up for the recital and things like that. And so aside from me doing what I do, I need to give them as much energy because we're nurturing their craft and
Hmm.
teaching them how to do as such. So that's just as important.
Okay. All right. Well, I'd like to thank you for joining us tonight. We're gonna have to wrap this up right now so as to appease the YouTube gods. Uh, Once again, I thank you so much for appearing here, and for the CMB Reggae audience. I would still urge you to continue to tune in every week for new original content from CMB Reggae, in which I cover the happenings of all the things that are going on in reggae in the Mid Atlantic. Take care.
Thank you, Chris. Take care.
Thank you. Take care.